We couldn't have more appropriate readings, especially our first reading today, for the fact that this might be very well our last Mass here. First reading is talking about the beautification of the temple. You can imagine some of the building works that would have gone on, and talking about gates and doors and dedications of temples and gold and other things being placed into the temple to beautify and to create a sacred place for worship. It's not a place for business. We don't do this because we're building a Westfields. We do this because we're building it as a place of prayer. And I know it's been quite a challenge for us not being able to be in the church for several weeks now, while other people have been able to come back to church. But we've been able to worship in this place in preparation to be able to return into our church. As the gospel reminds us, our church, our temple, is to be a house of prayer. And that's what our church is. When we come into the church, it's an opportunity to encounter God. Whenever we come into the church, encounter God. Dedicate time communally together, but also individually to prayer. Treasure that. Sometimes there can be a temptation, not necessarily in our own church, but perhaps you've seen it in other churches, where people use the church as an opportunity to talk about sport and all sorts of other things. The church is a place of prayer. It's the house of God. Let's, when we return to the church, really dedicate it and treat our church in a reverent way, in a way that's a place of God. Let us invite others to come in to experience God's presence amongst us. Sometimes we think, why do we worry about these external things? Isn't it all just about the heart? We don't really need a church. And some people have said, well, we love celebrating Mass outdoors. Why do we even need a church? Our faith is a sacramental faith, which means that we have external things which we do, like we bless bread and wine, and that becomes something of God's presence for us. It becomes the real presence. We do external things, but they bring about an interior reality in our lives. And so we are sacramental. With all of the sacraments, we do an external action, but when you look at it, it doesn't really do all that much. A couple exchanges, a couple of sentences, they exchange a ring, but we know that something then incredible has happened. They've been bound together in love to be the presence of God for the rest of their lives as a married couple. And a sacrament occurs. You think, externally, nothing really significant has really happened. And so we create external things so that it will bring about an interior reality. We don't just create a house, we're creating a house of prayer, a house of worship. And this is the way the Jewish people did in the Old Testament, and the Christian community have done right throughout history as well, to dedicate specific places to set aside, not for business, but for worship, for the worship of our God. So as we return to our place of prayer, let us make it very much the house of God, the house of prayer, the place to encounter and to converse with God and to converse in prayer with each other. Let us continue to pray for all of the faithful departed today, and to please, over the next few weeks, to pray for Father Danny Marr. He will be ordained a bishop at St Mary's Cathedral on the Solemnity of the Immaculate Conception, which is on the 8th of December. So that's a great day for our Archdiocese. Father Danny has said to me a number of times he feels like this is his parish, other than the parishes where he's specifically served, or the seminary. He has his own little place where he often goes to out at Bundina. So we can almost feel like he's one of our parishioners being made the auxiliary bishop of Sydney, and his mum is part of our community here too. So Father Danny's assisted with masses here in the past. He helped with masses for Christmas last year and the year before, and other times as well. So it's a real honour, I think, for our parish and for our whole diocese that Father Danny's been appointed one of the assistant bishops of Sydney.